the Nightly Business Report.
Good evening. Tonight, President says the country must adhere to the International Monetary Fund agreements and support the Economic Transformation Bill to set the country back. Sri Lanka's political leadership congratulates Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He replies emphasizing his interest in maintaining and developing partnerships, including the economy. The stock market seems to be back on track as another day of gains is recorded at the end of today's trading session. And China's service activity in the last month accelerated while staffing levels expanded for the first time since January. Good evening and thank you for joining us. President Ranil Wickremesinghe stressed that failing to adhere to the International Monetary Fund agreements would set the country back, and he urged support for the Economic Transformation Bill presented to the Parliament, emphasizing that it's everyone's responsibility to implement the agreements.
The President made these remarks during the Urame Freehold Deeds and Rights Distribution Program at Vandala Sri Visuddharama Karavanalla. Addressing the event, President highlighted the importance of meeting economic targets outlined in the IMF agreements to maintain the country's economic stability, stating that deviating from these targets would harm the economy. He further stated that we have successfully negotiated agreements with the IMF to outline the objectives for the country's economic development, and the aim is for the country's economy to achieve a 5% growth by 2027, with a further increase to 8% in the future. Additionally, he said they are committed to reduce unemployment to 5% by 2025 and extreme poverty to 25% by 2027 and then to 10% by 2035. The President called on the opposition to refrain from making politically motivated statements and to instead work within the existing framework. He expressed confidence in the government's accomplishments and called for unity to advance the country's progress. Moreover, he added that Sri Lanka's tourism industry is thriving and they're committed to reducing poverty through agricultural modernization programs. With 80% of our economy originating from rural areas, he said that boosting rural economic growth is crucial to poverty eradication.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has exchanged tweets with Sri Lanka's political leadership, emphasizing his interest in maintaining and developing partnerships, including the economy. The tweets were shared after mammoth elections that saw his Bharatiya Janata Party losing its earlier absolute majority.
Modi has lost ground amid inflation and his authoritarian nationalist policies, which also saw the Election Commission's independence undermined with the removal of the Chief Justice and pending removal of personal laws. Replying to President Ranil Wickremesinghe's congratulatory message posted on social media platform X, Modi stated that he looked forward in continuing cooperation on the India-Sri Lanka economic partnership. Further replying to the opposition leader Sajit Premadasa, he said that their relations with Sri Lanka are special and uniquely fraternal, and that they are committed to further strengthening the unbreakable bonds in keeping with their neighbourhood-first policy. Moreover, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa also conveyed his congratulations to the Indian Prime Minister, and replying to his post on X, Modi mentioned that as the India-Sri Lanka partnership charts new frontiers, he looks forward to his continued support.
Sri Lankan Parliament's Committee on Public Finance has concluded its examination of a visa deal with IVS GBS VFS Global, which is a private company. Its chairman Harshadi Silva said that officials of the Public Security Ministry who had not come to an earlier meeting were present yesterday.
De Silva said in an X message that IVS GBS VFS visa matters were concluded and their report will be presented at the earliest. He added that as he has maintained throughout, he shall not discuss substantive issues till then. The VFS deal led to hikes of visa fees and additional charges, including undisclosed fees being charged from tourists. Last month, the newly introduced visa issuance system by Global Visa Processing Service VFS Global and its charges were brought to the limelight after a local passenger had raised concerns over the process, with a video of the incident being widely circulated on social media. The tourist industry said that the website is also complex and puts off some visitors compared to the user-friendly website operated by the Department of Immigration earlier. Following protests by Tourism Minister Harin Fernando, a $50 visa has been reintroduced.
Official data shows that state-run Sri Lankan Airlines has reported a net profit of 1,124 million rupees in 9 months to December 2023, turning around from a loss of 73.26 billion rupees for the full year ending March 2023.
Sri Lankan had earned revenues of 248 billion rupees in the 9 months to December, with 205.6 billion in passenger income and 22.6 billion rupees in freight and 18.7 billion in unspecified other incomes. Operating costs were 223.8 billion rupees, with 86.3 billion rupees spent on fuel, 22.09 billion rupees on employees, and another 6.7 billion listed as crew costs. Earnings before interest and tax was 24.5 billion rupees for the 9 months compared to 41.9 billion rupees last year. Interest cost for the 9 months was 26.0 billion rupees against 51 billion rupees for the full last year. In the year 2022 to 2023, the government had injected 102.5 billion rupees as equity to settle due to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation dating from prior years. The government has also given a $11.6 million treasury guarantee to the International Air Transport Association to support the airline's cash flow problems.
Time for a short commercial break now. Updates coming right after this from the Colombo stock market. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Showing more positivity, the Colombo Stock Exchange recorded the second consecutive day of gains, showing a slight consistency in the positive trajectory. Both the all-share price index and the S&P SL 20 index recorded gains at the end of today's trading session. For the breakdown, let's go to Brendan Fernando joining us from SC Securities.
Yes. All-share price index closed at 12,189, showing an increase of 85 points, and the S&P SL 20 index closed at 3,605, showing an increase of 37 points. The turnover was at 1.24 billion rupees with a share volume of 37.1 million, showing a positive sentiment on the market. The top 5 gainers were Ceylon Hospitals, Ceylon Beverage Holdings, UB Finance, Tess Agro and HMB Finance. John Keells Holdings, HMB and Dip Products recorded the highest turnover during the today's session. A crossing of 164.5 million by John Keells and 20.3 million by NDB was recorded for the day.
Sri Lanka's stock market regulator, Securities and Exchange Commission, said it took measures last year to protect the general public from unprincipled investment advisors who are using social media to provide investment advice. The SEC has imposed fines on investment advisors to settle offences of manipulating the share market in the past. However, market players say people who do not have proper qualification have been advising the general public via social media, pretending to be professional and licensed investment advisors. The SEC chairman said in regulator's 2023 annual report that one notable area of focus during the year has been the proliferation of unlicensed individuals providing investment advice, particularly through social media channels. He added that in view of the potential risk posed by the such unauthorized advice, the SEC took proactive measures to warn and educate such individuals and the general public about the regulatory requirements that govern the offering of investment advice. The central bank's bill auction for the week was held this afternoon, and to get a detailed update on what the results are and how it would affect the secondary market in the upcoming days, let's connect Tharusha Ashokgar from First Capital Holdings.
After 8 weeks of consecutive declines, today's Treasury bill auction saw a notable uptick in weighted average yields. Also, the central bank fully accepted the total offered amount of LK 235 billion. In terms of the auction results, there was a slight increase in weighted average yield rates for the 3-month and 1-year maturities, while the 6-month bill remained stable at 9.04%. Specifically, the 3-month bill was accepted at a weighted average yield of 8.7%, up by 8 basis points from last week's rate of 8.62%. Similarly, the 1-year T-bill saw a 9 basis points increase to 9.27% from the previous week's 9.18%. Notably, both the 3-month and 6-month bills were oversubscribed, and around 48% of the total accepted amount which amounted to LKR 112 billion, came from the 6 months maturity. While in the secondary bond market, activity remained subdued with limited trading volume and a bit of selling interest was observed mainly on the short to mid tenors. So as mentioned last week, we believe that interest rates have bottomed out on the short tenors with yields hovering below the 10% mark. And however, further developments in the economic indicators together with the completion of the external debt restructuring and signing of the board level agreement for the IMF third tranche can potentially bring down rates further. And specific to note is the overnight liquidity in the market also continued to strengthen and remain above the LKR 100 billion level since April 2024.
Gold prices rose in Asia trade today but stuck to a range seen for nearly 2 weeks amid continued speculation over when the Federal Reserve will begin cutting interest rates. Spot gold rose 0.4% to $2,337.35 an ounce, while gold futures expiring in August rose 0.4% to $2,357.05 an ounce. But spot gold remains squarely within a $2,300 to $2,350 range seen in nearly 2 weeks, a range it entered after tumbling from record highs hit in May. Among industrial metals, copper prices hit a 1-month nearly low, wiping most of the run to record highs through May amid growing concerns over slowing global economic growth. Gold saw some respite as dollars sank to 2-month lows this week, but the greenback staged a mild recovery today. Oil prices dipped slightly today, remaining at a 4-month lows after industry data pointed to an unexpected build-up in the US crude inventories. Brent crude futures August delivery fell to 0.1% from $77.44 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude futures slipped 0.1% to $72.98 a barrel. Both benchmarks extended losses for 6 straight sessions, approaching their weakest levels since early February. The data, which came amid a series of weaker than expected US economic indicators, added to concerns over a slowing oil demand as economic growth cools. The American Petroleum Institute reported that US crude inventories rose by around 4 million barrels in the week to 31st of May, defining expectations for a 19 million barrel draw. The Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated against the US dollar today compared to yesterday. The buying rate of the US dollar has increased from 297 rupees and 14 cents to 297 rupees and 29 cents, while the selling rate has also increased from 306 rupees to 82 cents from 306 rupees and 88 cents. The rupee has fluctuated against several foreign currencies while it has depreciated against the Gulf currencies. Let's have a look at its behavior today. Let's go for a short commercial break now. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Sri Lanka Cricket today announced that Secure Consultants Incorporate, a leading civil engineering consulting firm based in Los Angeles, California, has come forward to take the future of the LPL team Dambulla.
The team will be operated under De Silva Holdings, specifically set up for this purpose. SLC said in a statement that the majority stake in Sequoia Consultants is owned by Mr. Priyanga De Silva, a chartered civil engineer who is the CEO and president of Sequoia Consultants Incorporated. De Silva said that his desire to get engaged in cricket, especially cricket in Sri Lanka, prompted him to purchase the Dambulla team. With the new buyer, the team will be known as Dambulla Sixers. Tournament director of the LPL, Mr. Samantha Duranwala, commented that they are extremely happy to have the new owner taking over Dambulla, and Mr. De Silva's background as a former first-class cricketer definitely adds value to this ownership, as he understands the cricketing pulse of our nation. Meanwhile, the 5th edition of the Lanka Premier League is scheduled to start on the 1st of July and will be played in 3 cities, Kandy, Dambulla and Colombo.
United Petroleum Lanka Private Limited has entered into a contract yesterday with the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka with an investment of $27.5 million as a part of the agreement signed between the Minister of Power and Energy to supply petroleum products in the Sri Lankan market.
This event came into life after selecting the company based on RFP issued by Sri Lankan government to further liberalising the country's retail petroleum sector early last year. United Groups also has many other businesses in Australia and Singapore, and this is the first time the company expanded their retail petroleum business outside Australia. Owners of the company believe that they should be able to benchmark good practices to Sri Lankan retail petroleum markets and enhance the quality of product and service to its customers. United is planning to upgrade and uplift standards of retail petroleum sector in Sri Lanka with quality products and services. The company is assigned 150 existing fuel stations around the country and has the right of building 50 new fuel stations under the ownership of United. United Petroleum Australia has incorporated a company in Sri Lanka, namely United Petroleum Lanka Private Limited, to carry out the operations. Mr. Dinesh Virakkodi, chairman of BOI, signed on behalf of Board of Investment, and Dr. Prabhat Samarasinghe, the CEO and director of United Petroleum Lanka Private Limited, has signed the contract at the event organised by BOI Sri Lanka.
HEMAS, in collaboration with Hatch, proudly announces the second iteration of the HEMAS X Hatch Slingshot program.
Following on from the success of this accelerator program in 2023, where HEMAS supported 25 startups and accelerated 8 startups through an intense, high-quality program delivered by Hatch, Slingshot 2.0 aims to support a further 25 startups in the sectors of EdTech, FMCG, healthcare and logistics, fostering innovation and contributing to the growth of the Sri Lankan economy. The HEMAS X Hatch Slingshot program is designed to create mutual benefits for all stakeholders involved. Startups gain immensely from this initiative, receiving mentorship, valuable resources and access to HEMAS's extensive network, significantly accelerating their journey to success. In turn, HEMAS gains exposure to innovative ideas and technologies that have the potential to fuel its future growth. This collaborative effort fosters a more vibrant startup ecosystem within Sri Lanka, leading to job creation and contributing to the nation's economic growth. Applications for the HEMAS X Hatch Slingshot 2.0 accelerator program are now open, and interested startups can apply through the official website www.slingshot.lk.
Let's take a short commercial break now. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Asian shares traded mixed today as investors weighed recent data highlighting a slowing US economy that offers both upsides and downsides for Wall Street. Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 shed 1% in early trading to 38,448.61. Australia's S&P ASX 200 edged up 0.3% to 7,759.20. South Korea's Kospi jumped 1.2% to 2,695.02, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng added 1.2% to 18,659.25. The Shanghai Composite dipped nearly 0.1% to 3,088.18. Analysts said recent data on wage growth in Japan will turn more pronounced once results of the recent spring labor negotiations kick in. US stocks ended on a shade higher yesterday following a softer than expected labor market data that reaffirmed expectations of an interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve.
U.S. stocks ended slightly higher on Tuesday, following softer than expected jobs data that fueled hopes of rate cuts this year from the Federal Reserve. The Dow added about 0.33%, while the S&P 500 and NASDAQ both ticked up marginally. Data on Tuesday showed U.S. job openings in April fell to their lowest level in more than 3 years, reflecting an easing labor market. Stocks on the move included oil giant ExxonMobil, which fell about 1.5%, and Chevron, which lost just under 1%, as demand concerns weighed on crude prices. Bath & Body Works slumped nearly 13% after a lower revision to its quarterly profit forecast. And shares of Paramount Global fell more than 4% after the media conglomerate said it was exploring strategic options or a joint venture for its Paramount Plus streaming service.
Initial votes counts in India's general election sparked significant market turmoil, causing Indian stocks to suffer their worst intraday fall since 2020 March. The preliminary results created widespread uncertainty among investors, leading to a rapid sell-off in the stock market.
Indian stocks suffered their worst intraday fall since March 2020 on Tuesday. That's as voting trends in the general election suggested Prime Minister Narendra Modi's alliance seemed unlikely to win the overwhelming majority that was predicted by exit polls. As the votes came in, it looked like Modi's own BJP would fail to secure a majority on its own and would need allies in the National Democratic Alliance to form a government. That could lead to uncertainty over economic policies, like the push for investments-led growth. This has been a cornerstone of Modi's rule, with the economy growing over 8% in the financial year ended March 2024. These initial vote counts sparked market turmoil. The Nifty 50 closed down 5.9% and the S&P BSE Sensex fell 5.7%. The indexes slumped to lows of 8.5% earlier in the day, marking their biggest intraday fall since the first lockdown during the global health crisis in 2020. That's after hitting record highs on Monday, when investor sentiment was buoyed over projections of a big win for Modi's BJP and expectations of sustained economic growth. And the rupee ended down 0.5% on the day, marking its worst single-day fall in 16 months. Analysts said Indian markets are likely to now derate due to higher risk perception, with difficult reforms like changes to land and labour policies and privatisation of state-run enterprises likely, quote, off the table.
A private sector survey showed that China's service activity in the last month accelerated at the quickest pace in 10 months, while staffing levels expanded for the first time since January, pointing to a sustained recovery in the second quarter.
China's shops and restaurants are getting busy, and that's giving economic recovery hopes a boost. Figures out Wednesday showed the service sector enjoying a strong upturn. The Caixin S&P Purchasing Managers Index hit 54 in May. That's well up on April and the strongest number for 10 months. The data also showed more staff being hired to cope with the rising demand, raising hopes for job seekers. Increased demand for exports has helped drive recent gains. It wasn't all good news on Wednesday, however. Price pressures intensified, with firms raising their charges in line with rising costs. Business confidence also edged lower, amid worries including uncertain global demand. The turmoil in the country's property sector also shows little sign of easing, despite government moves to support the market. Home sales and prices have been sliding amid a glut of unsold properties. Overall, though, China's economy has made a solid start to the year, prompting the International Monetary Fund and rating agencies to lift their growth forecasts for 2024.
Well, that concludes today's Nightly Business Report. We'll see you again tomorrow with the latest happenings around the business globe. Until then, I'm Vinod Varnasurya. Have a good night.